How you see this particular development, the official announcement by Pakistan that talks ended. Once these talks ended, what is the future of ceasefire now?
It will be a sort of a broken affair. So we will have moments where it will look like that this ceasefire will not continue. And then we will see Pakistan and Afghanistan returning back to this ceasefire. So what I'm just saying is that we will continue to see this instability on the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, and it's quite obvious. When it comes to Pakistan, they want to continue the guerrilla diplomacy with Pakistan by using TTP, which now I will say is an Afghan Taliban proxy being used against Pakistan.
Instead of addressing Pakistani security concern, Afghan Interior Ministry official is saying that Afghanistan will attack. Will Pakistan halt its war against terror, or Pakistan would continue to do for the safety and security of people of Pakistan?
We have crossed a point where we cannot go back with regards to Afghanistan. We cannot go back now. No government in Kabul can sustain and continue to exist without maintaining a good relationship with Pakistan.
Opening of embassy, although it is a diplomatic affair between Afghan Taliban and India, but sporting proxies, how dangerous that element and that aspect is?
All the big powers know that India has used Afghanistan for proxy warfare since the 1950s. I mean, it's not a secret.
In the Moscow format, they have made it clear to all participating countries hardly a few weeks ago in Moscow that the Afghan territory will not be used against terrorism. So what went wrong in a couple of days that Afghan Taliban are reluctant in giving assurance to Pakistan against TTP and other terror groups?
We are in Pakistan now dealing with a neighbor ruled by a guerrilla, which is facing the classic dilemma faced by all revolutionary guerrilla groups, which is how to make the transition from being a guerrilla to a state.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello and welcome to Program Insight in V News English. Dear viewers, the biggest development as far as regional security context is concerned, that is, Pakistan has officially announced today that its talks with Afghan Taliban are over now. These talks continued for 3 days in Turkish city Istanbul, but concluded without any final agreement or final document or any final communique. The reason of failure of Istanbul talks clearly and completely lies on Afghan Taliban, who did not address the Pakistani security concerns. In the talks, which continued for 3 days, there have been several rounds, then there have been breaks. So whenever there used to be a break in the talks, Afghan Taliban delegation in Istanbul used to contact their top leadership in Kabul after getting fresh instructions. The previous stance which they adopted towards Pakistan, they used to change that stance. The stance which Afghan Taliban earlier adopted during Istanbul talks, that they admitted and they accepted Pakistan's security concerns. This was what Pakistan's only demand during the talks was, that Afghan Taliban should take concrete, decisive action against terrorist outfits, particularly TTP and other terrorist organizations. And Afghan territory should not be used for terrorism against Pakistan. The proxies which are in Afghanistan against Pakistan, there should be a decisive action by Afghan Taliban. Afghan Taliban were reluctant, and instead they presented a demand to Pakistan that Afghanistan's sovereignty and independence may be respected. Pakistan had already made it clear that Afghanistan's sovereignty and independence is respected. But when it comes to the security of the people of Pakistan, security of Pakistan, there will be no compromise. And today, Pakistani Defense Minister Khwaja Asif made it clear that if attacked again, there will be a firm and decisive response. To discuss this all, that after collapse of Istanbul talks, where Pakistan and Afghanistan are heading, and along with this, we will also try to get answers that why Taliban are behaving with arrogance with Pakistan and are not addressing Pakistani security concern. We are fortunate to have with us one of the finest political security and defense analysts who has also a deep eye on counter-terrorism domain as well, Mr. Ahmed Qureshi, who is international affairs expert as well. Mr. Ahmed Qureshi, very warm welcome to program Insight in V News English.
It's a great pleasure to be with you, Mateen.
So it's always a pleasure to have you in our program. So the Istanbul talks have collapsed. Pakistan has officially confirmed it today. Pakistani Defense Minister Khwaja Asif made it clear. And earlier, midnight, there was a statement by Pakistani Information Minister, Mr. Ataullah Tarar, that means two Pakistani cabinet member. Information Ministry is always considered as chief spokesman of the government, and Defense Minister Khwaja Asif is the same minister who earlier headed Pakistani delegation when talks held in Doha between Pakistan and Afghan Taliban. How you see this particular development, the official announcement by Pakistan that talks ended? Now, question is, once these talks ended, what is the future of ceasefire now?
Exactly. So, Mateen, it's really good to be with you because I know that you're an insider of Islamabad. I don't know if people outside Islamabad know this, but you've been an old hand here. So I'm during this conversation, and we'll make it quick and fast. I would also love for you to jump in and just provide your input as well, because number one, of your expertise, and number two, you're an insider here. And number three, you've been following this particular Afghanistan. You've been following it for much longer than even I have. So let's begin with this point that you raised. If the ceasefire could hold between Pakistan and Afghanistan, I think it will be a sort of a broken affair. So we will have moments where it will look like that this ceasefire will not continue, and then we will see Pakistan and Afghanistan returning back to this ceasefire. So what I'm just saying is that we will continue to see this instability on the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, and it's quite obvious that the problem has not been resolved, unfortunately, even with the involvement of two countries which have excellent relationship with Pakistan, but also have an excellent relationship with the Taliban. And I mean, of course, Qatar and Turkey. But despite that, we don't see any resolution to and I don't think any outside country will be able to resolve this thing. Unfortunately, if we continue to discuss this in the minutes and moments ahead, Mateen, I think we need to acknowledge and say it very openly. In the 3 years that the Taliban have had it in Afghanistan, run foreign policy, I will not hide this. It's my view. I will say this, that I was a bit impressed with the way the Taliban managed their foreign affairs, especially their relationship with the United States after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. And they've been very mature in their statements when it comes to the West, the Europe, and when it comes to the United States. What I'm surprised with is in their relationship with Pakistan, they want to continue with their pre-1996 lifestyle. They've been used to being a guerrilla warfare group. And it seems that when it comes to Pakistan, they want to continue the guerrilla diplomacy with Pakistan by using TTP, which now I will say is an Afghan Taliban proxy being used against Pakistan. So we're not going to see this stability. And unfortunately, unless we see a drastic change in Kabul, not only with Pakistan, but also with regards to their promise, which they have not kept. They made a promise, Mateen, with the United States and with the international community that after a period of time of stabilizing Afghanistan, they will form an inclusive government. That hasn't happened. What do you think?
That's correct. That this was one of the biggest promise they made. That there will be an inclusive government, there will be general election, they will revisit Afghanistan constitution. As you rightly pointed out, that it's almost 3 years now, more than 3 years, they have not been able to fulfill the promise of this inclusive government. They did not bring other political parties, other religious parties into mainstream. And these are some of the
Also
questions.
ethnic, and also ethnic. The other
Also ethnic,
ethnicities, the other
exactly.
ethnicities of the
And the concern by international and Western community was these restrictions on women education, women employment, art, culture, and these all things. So now we have also seen a statement by Afghan Interior Ministry spokesman, who also said that if attacked, then Afghanistan would like to give a firm response to Pakistan. This means Afghan Taliban have not changed their mindset. They are still aggressive, as you mentioned, very nice word, this guerrilla warfare diplomacy. So that is what the Interior Ministry spokesman said. This is not warfare, guerrilla warfare diplomacy. It is an open threat. Instead of addressing Pakistani security concern, Afghan Interior Ministry official is saying that Afghanistan will attack. So they are not addressing Pakistani security the concern. Question is now, of course, we have seen even today, day before yesterday, over last 1 week, while the talks were on, Pakistani security forces have been engaged in various counter-terrorism operations in KP. KP is one of the worst affected. KP is Pakistan. There are Pakistani citizens. There are Pakistani security forces officials embracing shahadat, martyrdom. So, what do you think? Will Pakistan halt its war against terror, or Pakistan would continue to do for the safety and security of people of Pakistan?
I think Pakistan and Pakistani diplomacy, Mateen, I think we can agree that we have crossed a point where we cannot go back with regards to Afghanistan. We cannot go back now. The only way is forward. And what I mean by that is we have to be very clear about one thing, Mateen. I hear, and I'm sure you're hearing this a lot, that somehow Afghanistan is the graveyard of empires. And we hear this a lot. And we're hearing this a lot from people who are trying to sort of indirectly side with the Afghan Taliban position against Pakistan and sort of scare Pakistan by saying that we cannot afford to take up this issue with the Afghan Taliban. But I think that is the wrong way of looking at this. The right way of looking at it is as follows. No government in Kabul can sustain and continue to exist without maintaining a good relationship with Pakistan. So forget about all the talk. Forget all the talk about Afghanistan being the graveyard of empires. No, I mean, that's just talk. That's a mythology for history books. It sounds very nice. Yes, there's evidence to back it, from 100 or 150 years ago. But the reality right now, over the past 50 years, is as follows. No government in Kabul, whether it is a communist government, whether it is a Soviet-backed government, whether
a religious government, exactly.
A religious government by a militia guerrilla like Afghan Taliban, no government in Kabul can sustain and prolong and continue in power without the goodwill of Pakistan and the goodwill of Islamabad. So I think it should be very clear to the Afghan Taliban government at this moment that without the goodwill of Islamabad and without the goodwill of Pakistan, regardless of the number of good relationships
weapons,
with the Afghan
powers,
Taliban,
relations, exactly.
Exactly. It will not help them to have a good relationship with China or the United States, Turkey or Qatar, if they do not have a good relationship with Pakistan. So it's a landlocked country. It has the biggest border with Pakistan. Obviously, it shares other important borders with other neighboring countries as well. But all of those neighboring countries, whether it's Iran, whether it's Tajikistan, whether it's Uzbekistan, all of them are not comfortable with the Afghan Taliban government. Of course, we saw the Indian government developing a good relationship recently with the Afghan Taliban, and I was surprised to see them also defending some of the Afghan Taliban positions. Well, that's good for them. That's diplomacy. It might be a win for them,
But
in some
sorry for
ways.
interruption. This is quite valid point you have raised that India and Afghan Taliban are establishing their diplomatic ties. India has almost, not almost, but has opened its embassy in Kabul. And as you commented, that is also right comment and analysis that it is an independent communication or decision between two sovereign nations. But question arises that India has a notorious record in Afghanistan. India used to provide weapons, funding, military training when India had embassy during the previous tenure, during the previous government of Ashraf Ghani. So opening of embassy, although it is a diplomatic affair between Afghan Taliban and India, but supporting proxies, how dangerous that element and that aspect is?
That's a great question, Mateen. I think all the big powers know that India has used Afghanistan for proxy warfare since the 1950s. I mean, it's not a secret. The Russians are aware. The Chinese are recent entrants into Afghan affairs, but they know that as well. And Americans know it. The best part is the Americans know it so well. They know it from the Cold War years, and they know it from the post 9/11 years, that India has used Afghanistan and Afghan soil for proxy warfare. And the best part is, with the recent improvement of relationship between Afghan Taliban and India, it's quite obvious that India has no interest in Afghanistan for the time being. I mean, there's no business of that scale. There's no
trade, no traders, no Indian citizens. Exactly.
Exactly. There's nothing. The only reason is the enemy. It's just to use the Afghan soil and the Afghan Taliban against Pakistan and to interfere with that. So I think it's quite. And I'm sure President Trump and the U.S. government are watching this thing. I see a lot of coolness also, Mateen, from countries in the Middle East when it comes to the Afghan Taliban government. You can notice yourself now, the only two Middle Eastern countries that are actively engaging the Afghan Taliban are Turkey and Turkey and Qatar, and they have their own reasons for that, and we respect that. But no other country is really engaging robustly or strongly. In fact, we know from diplomatic sources that major Muslim nations have privately, in private gatherings and meetings, including in one-to-one meetings with Afghan Taliban officials, have expressed their direct reservations on Afghan Taliban policies. And I will specifically mention two countries. One is Indonesia, which is the largest Muslim nation by population in the world. They are very deeply disturbed by Afghan Taliban's bad example of a Muslim country when it comes to their policies on women and girl education. And also Saudi Arabia. They're also very concerned about the example that the Afghan Taliban government is setting in Afghanistan when it comes to two things: inclusivity, which is including all components of the Afghan society, all of them, minorities, ethnic groups, all of them. Bad example being set by the Afghan Taliban government 3 years down the road. And of course, their treatment of women and girls. So on these two counts, even these two important Muslim nations, and all the other, frankly speaking. And I just will remind you very quickly that just a few months ago, in January, in Islamabad, there was a major historic landmark declaration that was endorsed by all the 57 Muslim countries, with the exception of Afghanistan, and it was backed by the international community, the United Nations, the EU, and others. And all of them had representatives in Islamabad. And that declaration, it's called the Islamabad Declaration on Girl Education.
And I remember there was an international summit, exactly.
Exactly. And Malala Yousafzai was
Especially came,
attending,
exactly.
and it was co-organized by the government of Pakistan
And United
and
Nations.
no, the government of Saudi Arabia, represented by the World Muslim League, which is
Exactly.
Mecca-based organization,
Organization.
which represents all Muslims and all Islamic schools of thought, all of them, and
Hmm.
all of them were gathered in Islamabad. You had Muslim scholars from
But United
everywhere.
Nations was one of the sponsor, exactly. Hmm.
Exactly. It was one of these sponsors. And you had Muslim scholars, by the way, Mateen. You had Muslim scholars from Mecca, from Al Azhar Sharif,
Hmm.
from Najaf al Ashraf,
Hmm.
from Iran in Qum,
Boom.
and from
Hmm.
Turkey. And from Turkey. So, these are major Islamic centers in the Muslim world.
Seats
All
of
of them were
learning,
gathered,
exactly. Established seats of learning,
seats
exactly.
of learning. All of them were gathered in Islamabad, and the ulema, all of them, the scholars, endorsed this historic document called the Islamabad Declaration on Girl Education, which said, after today, no one, no group, no scholar has the right to exclude women and girls and restrict them from education. So there's an isolation that the Afghan Taliban government also are facing and suffering within the Islamic world.
That's correct. That Taliban, due to their very hard and rigid policies, large number of Afghan society, particularly women, they're suffering. Ahmed Qureshi Saab, since I've seen your international reporting and analysis, you have been keeping eye on Middle East, on Afghanistan, mainly on counterterrorism domains. Afghan Taliban initially, a couple of months back, rather perhaps 1 year, 1.5 year back, there was an executive order issued by their supreme leader, supreme Taliban leader, prohibiting and restricting Afghan citizens from joining the hands of the terrorist organization and made it clear that no Afghan citizen should go to Pakistan and fight along with these terror organizations. That was encouraging development. But now question is, what went wrong? That they are reluctant to take precise action against these same terror groups against whom they have earlier made commitment, not only to Pakistan, but in the Moscow format, they have made it clear to all participating countries hardly a few weeks ago in Moscow that the Afghan territory will not be used against terrorism. So what went wrong in a couple of days that Afghan Taliban are reluctant in giving assurance to Pakistan against TTP and other terror groups?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mateen. I mean, that's I think this is the crux, and of course we can have multiple ways of looking at it, but I think one of the clearest ways of looking at it is as follows. The Afghan Taliban obviously is a guerrilla organization, Mateen, and they came to power through guerrilla warfare. They understand that despite the fact that they're forced now to make a transition from being a guerrilla into a state, but the fact of the matter is they understand that their foundation of their power is based on their ability to maintain and sustain guerrilla warfare capabilities. And the moment they discard these capabilities, they will become a victim probably to some other groups and opposition groups that might come and overtake them. So number one, they understand that they cannot get rid of this aspect of their power base. That's number one. And number two, I think we are looking at, Mateen, because you made you framed such a great question. I think we have to admit and acknowledge that we are in Pakistan now dealing with a neighbor ruled by a guerrilla, which is facing the classic dilemma faced by all revolutionary guerrilla groups, which is how to make the transition from being a guerrilla to a state. And Afghan Taliban obviously are facing that dilemma right now. They are unable to decide whether they should completely go for, in transition into a government, a modern state, inclusive, and move forward, or whether they should retain their guerrilla warfare foundation and just show the world an image of a state, but remain and retain their guerrilla warfare identity. And I think they've decided to remain a guerrilla warfare in essence, because that's the only way. And I think we will see in the days ahead. I think we will see the days ahead. Pakistan and Pakistani officials and the government of Pakistan increasingly highlight this aspect, because Pakistan has given Afghan Taliban a good chance. We've given them
a very
3
good
years.
chance. Exactly.
A very good chance we've given them. And I think 3 years was enough to see and test the Afghan Taliban's ability to transition themselves from a guerrilla into a state. And although they managed to do a few good things, for example, they managed to run their diplomacy in a quite, I would say, a mature way. So they've been very good when it comes to foreign policy and maintaining their relationships and building new relationships. But the good news stops there. Other than that, I might give them also credit a bit on stabilizing Afghanistan, in a sense that Afghanistan did not break into civil warfare. So maybe that's also a credit, but that credit does not go alone to Afghan Taliban. That credit also goes to all of the Afghan opposition groups, all of them, the minorities, the religious, the ethnic minorities, all of them have groups, but all of them were very responsible. They could have gone into civil warfare against Afghan Taliban, but they all chose not to go. So the credit does not only or solely belongs to the Afghan Taliban, it also goes to Afghan opposition groups and the minority groups and all of them. So, but we've given them 3 years. They're unable to create an inclusive government, number one. They're unable to move forward, show us a path forward for the future of Afghanistan. I don't think Pakistan, with such a huge border with Afghanistan, with such a huge community of Afghan refugees in Pakistan, can continue to wait and give Afghan Taliban another 3 years and sit quiet and go through and suffer through the presence of these terror groups that continue attacks inside Pakistan. I don't think anybody in the international community will ask Pakistan to show more patience, because we have done it, and we have been very, very exemplary in showing patience and in helping Afghanistan and in helping the Afghan Taliban government. So I think the Afghan Taliban government now are facing a very stark reality. They cannot continue in power, and let's be very blunt, without the goodwill of Islamabad. And I think they should realize that sooner than later, for peace and for stability in our region, which is important for both Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Mr. Ahmed Qureshi, you have seen recently Pakistan and United States came quite close to each other. Extraordinary relations between Islamabad and Washington are witnessed. And recently, when I was in Washington in last week of September, the U.S. capital, where there used to be an Indian narrative, now in the power corridor, they are listening to Pakistani story, Pakistani narrative on counterterrorism, on regional security. Keeping in view this background, the American factor is always important. How since America has become a very good strategic partner with Pakistan, there have been frequency of meeting between Pakistani leadership and the U.S. President, Mr. Trump. How America will be viewing this? Also in the backdrop, I'm connecting another dot, that is the Bagram Air Base. So that is another factor. So how America will be viewing this? All America will definitely put its all support behind Pakistan. Your take?
The way you framed it, Mateen, especially the 3 words you used. You said you were in D.C., in Washington, and you saw there that Washington, D.C. now is listening to the Pakistani story.
And
so I love the way. Yes, I mean that's such a beautiful way of putting it. I think you just said so much in just 3 words, listening to Pakistani story. So Washington, D.C. now is listening to the Pakistani story. That's a very nice way of framing it. Now, of course, Mateen, you know so well, I mean, as much as anybody here in Islamabad, that we have multiple views in Islamabad when it comes to relationship with the United States. It just so happens that my view, my consistent view has been over the past, I would say, a decade, when it comes to Afghanistan. It has been my consistent view, and I know that this is a view that is shared in some sections in Islamabad, but there are some other views as well. But this view says the following, that in Afghanistan, I think Pakistan and the United States wasted a golden opportunity to work together to stabilize Afghanistan for decades to come. And we had a great opportunity. Unfortunately, that opportunity was lost by both the capitals, by Washington, D.C., equally as much as by Islamabad. And the reason for that, of course, as you know very well, was the luggage that both of these capitals carried from the Cold War. We had so many misunderstandings, so many issues. And I think in both capitals, people were too focused on the luggage and forgot to look forward on what we can together do on Afghanistan. We are feeling both in Islamabad and in Washington, D.C. now, we are feeling that we wasted that opportunity, and maybe we should get back and work on it all over again. Because let's be very honest, Mateen, all of the countries in the region have a stake in a stable Afghanistan. There's no doubt about this. The Russians have a stake. The Chinese have. Pakistan has. Exactly. Iran has. Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. Everybody has a stake in a stable Afghanistan. There's no question about it. But who has the ability to actually make a difference inside Afghanistan? It's only 2 countries. Let's be very honest. It's only 2 countries. It's Pakistan and it's the United States. I mean, everybody else can try and can help, and they have important role to play. I'm not discounting the role of other neighbors of Afghanistan. All of them have a role to play. And you cannot stabilize Afghanistan without the neighbors cooperating. There's no question about this. But the only 2 countries who are willing to pay a price for Afghanistan becoming right are only 2 countries who are willing to pay a price. It's Pakistan and the United States. And so it only makes sense if you're going to make Afghanistan better, to see Pakistan and the United States work on it. And it will be good for Kabul also to join and make this a trilateral cooperative thing. So I understand that President Trump did offer the Afghan Taliban government, both publicly and privately, to cooperate. I think the responses from the Afghan Taliban government, publicly at least, were, although they were not very aggressive, but they were not very, I would say, friendly, which I'm surprised, because over the past 3 years after the American withdrawal from Afghanistan, the Afghan Taliban went out of their way to be nice to the United States. But with the offer that the President Trump has made to them to cooperate and work together, I'm surprised to see Afghan Taliban actually not showing friendliness now. And I think it'll be, in their interest to seriously consider what the Americans are offering and what Pakistan is offering. And if we can work together, it'll be good for Afghanistan. Definitely, it'll be good for Pakistan. And obviously, the United States is a superpower. I mean, I can't speak for the Americans; they have their own interests. But it'll be good for us. It'll be good for Afghanistan. I'm afraid, with the opportunity given to Afghan Taliban over the past 3 years by both Pakistan and the international community, I think the Afghan Taliban have no options left, frankly, but to work with the only 2 countries who are willing to pay attention to Afghanistan. And those 2 countries are Pakistan and the United States. So, when you mentioned the Bagram Air Base, I don't know what the Americans have in their minds about Bagram Air Base, but I don't see any problem. If the Americans really want to go ahead with that, I don't see any problem with that. If the Afghan Taliban government moves ahead, I don't see Pakistan objecting or opposing or agreeing, because it's not our business. It's an Afghan territory. It's an Afghan
Exactly.
base. But definitely Pakistan is doing the right thing, the wise thing, to consider it. There's no harm in considering if that American proposal can actually be good for our region. If an American engagement with Afghanistan can help stabilize Afghanistan and end the role of terror
Then they should
groups,
be Bagram Air Base with them. This is what you are saying.
I think yes, I agree with you. I think
Thank
it
you
should
so
be with the
much.
Americans.
Exactly. So, takeaways that Americans are establishing Bagram Air Base. Again, they wanted to take control with sincerity, with the counterterrorism purpose only. And the regional countries should not have any sort of fear. And another takeaway from your program that Afghan Taliban may adopt guerrilla warfare with Pakistan that will be long, dangerous, and lethal. Thank you so much once again. Despite your
Good
busy
to be with you,
schedule,
Mateen.
you
Thank you.
participated in our program and you spoke in depth about one of the most complex issue, Pakistan-Afghanistan security relations. Dear viewers, till our next program, goodbye and Khuda Hafiz.